here are the 7 steps to dialing in an espresso shot. If you have the Baratza Sette W, you can skip this step. Step 1, weigh the portafilter and tear it out. Step 2 is to place it in the grinder. On the Sette W, I then press, I'm going to set to 18.5 grams. Now, if you don't have the Sette W, yours doesn't go by weight. It usually goes by time for most espresso grinders. So if yours goes by time, then go to the factory settings first, and what's going to happen is you'll grind your espresso, then you'll weigh it, and you want somewhere between 18 and 20 grams for your espresso. Choose one for now. Let's say I'm using 18.5, so I start with 18.5 and use that over and over again. For dialing in espresso, the most important thing you can do is be consistent with what you do. So, in other words, you're going to tear out your portafilter and you're going to go 18.5 grams. There we go. And you can bring all the grinds in a little bit so that when you tamp, it doesn't go all over the place. And you can weigh. I know it's going to be 18.5 because of the Sette W. But weigh your grinds before you tamp it. So if it comes out to 18 and you want 18.5, you can put your portafilter back in again for just a split second just to get that 0.5 down. It's amazing how much 0.5 will actually make a difference, so be sure that you are consistent. Doesn't matter how heavy your tamp is, only that you do the same tamp every time. So I have a training tamper that gives me the same amount of pressure every time. Place the tamper down, wait till the click, and then you can groom the grind just by spinning the tamper a few rounds. Any excess, and you'll just want to make sure you clear it off. Every step of the way we want to be weighing. So I take the cup, place it on my scale, I tear it out. If you have a Breville, chances are you're going to have a timer already set, but let's say you didn't have a timer, you can have a timer separate, either your phone or a kitchen timer is fine. And you're going to go for approximately 26 to 30 seconds. If you have a Breville, you're going to let it go for 30 seconds because that's pre-infusion. Most home espresso machines don't have pre-infusion, so my suggestion is 26 seconds. So I put my portafilter in when I'm ready. I hit the time and the amount. And for this machine, it's going to take 30 seconds, but let's pretend I didn't have an automatic timer, and what I would do is I'd watch the timer until it hits 26 seconds, and then I would shut it off. Looks like it's running a bit fast to me, which means I'll have to tighten up the grind size. You can hit it off, mine stops automatically. Alright, so then I weigh my amount of espresso, what we call the yield. So my espresso right now is yielding 50 grams of espresso. We want between 30 and 40 grams of espresso. For this specific espresso, I like 33 grams. So I know if I'm yielding 50 grams, that means too much water is coming through the grind at too fast of a rate. So what I want to do is actually tighten up the espresso, meaning make the grind finer, which would then allow the espresso to go through slower, giving me less espresso in the end. So let's try to tighten up the grind. So I'm going to make this a little bit finer. Right now I'm set to 8 on this machine. I'm going to 7. The last step of our process is to clear the grinds and clear the group head. I also usually rinse the portafilter at that point. I have a few different rags here. One is to clean off this. Another is specifically to dry the portafilter. So now I start all over again. Now the thing is with most grinders, if you change the grind size, you'll have to clear some of the beans. So you'll put it in for maybe, depending on your grinder, maybe 6 seconds. Once you have cleared the grinds from your grinder, you then start the process all over again. Make sure your portafilter is dry. Tear out the portafilter. proper timing of things. Not groom, sorry. Bring the grinds in a little bit. This way when I actually put the portafilter on here, I can read, all right, have 18.5 grams, which I do. Exciting. Tamp. I don't put this this portafilter in until I'm actually ready to brew. That's super important. If I put the portafilter in now and wait a little while, the grinds start getting hot and it's going to come out a lot more bitter tasting, the espresso. So I just can leave it off to the side. I tear off my cup here. Once my cup is ready, put the portafilter in, start my timer. If you're fortunate enough to have a small enough scale, you can put it underneath. And now I'm hoping it comes through a little bit slower than the last round. Alright, nailed it. 33.6 grams of espresso, that's my yield. And you can tell it's got a really nice crema onto it, nice and thick. Next step, clear the grinds, purge the brew pad.